Howdy lovelies, how are you all doing? Welcome back to our crafting, where we learn, grow and craft together. Today we are going to make the cover from scratch. We're going to decorate it after with also a ribbon closure. I'll show you how to do that, and we're going to make a simple topper. So without further ado, let's get started. We are going to use repurposed items to make our cover with. So I've got a paper bag. This is a shopping bag. And I'm going to use some repurposed Amazon envelopes just to make a sturdy cover. If you're using a cereal box or one of those, it's fine. You're going to cut it on 3 sides. So when you cut your cereal boxes, this is called a cornstarch box. Quite flimsy, but it should do for a soft cover. You can see that the one side of the box, I had cut this side off. So just trimmed it off there, and I cut all the extra bits at the bottom off. So there you have a beautiful, simple cover that is not going to take too much time to alter. You can cover it with fabric. You can use the inside. You can turn it over like this and use this side and then cover it with paper on the inside, whichever way you want to. But for today, I'm not going to use that. I want to show you how you can make this a little bit more sturdy to actually fit your purpose. Now, I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to use, I don't want this double layer here, so I'm just going to tear that off and discard that. And I'm going to do that on both parts. Oh, this one is already off. Let me just take that extra bit off. And then we're going to open the ends. I'm using a craft knife. Just open the ends. You're supposed to always cut away from yourself so that you can minimize injuries. I need to apologize, people. My throat is a little bit tender and my voice is not my own. So please just bear with me with a frog in the throat. It's change of season. Everybody has got some sort of a bug going around here. So it is kind of, just make sure the fingers are out of the way. There we go. I had to cut that one a bit skew, but we still have plenty to work with here. I want to see if I can get some of this out. I want to also show you how I rather cut this open. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to use my scissors. I'm not going to throw this away, just making a hole in there because I want to cut this bottom part out. Because I want to open it the other way around. And here I'll rather use because I want to open up. It's too thick. And I'll do that on the other side too. I'm sorry, this is a bit noisy. And then just cut that part off. Now normally when you use this as a pocket, you don't cut it open like that. So I'm just going to slice one side. And there we have a beautiful strip of paper. Now you might ask about these things. I normally just very carefully pull that off. So I just have that layer of paper. Now you will say, but it will be damaged but we're going to cover this anyway. So just getting that off so that it is sort of flat. Doing the same with this handle. And almost done with that. So it will be less noisy. A little bit of a noisy exercise. For a moment, I'm just going to put this one side so that we can first look at the size of our cover. Now I just need to open this one. That's quite unfortunate that I sliced it like that, but things like this happens and it's not the end of the world. why is it unfortunate? Because we lost that strip of paper. So let's get started. The signatures that we ended off last time, I left it as at this, and I told you I finished off this one with just some decorating here and there just to complete this. Don't want to move that around too much. And even with the paper in, remember I told you can use bank statements with some gesso on top. You can see that this is quite muted now, and you can't really see the detail. Once I have included a belly band or a tuck spot, you will not see those. I just want to get this back in order, and I'll put this one to one side. So we will use this one. This will be our guide. Now, if we take this one, this should be fine. Now, the spine is about, the sheet across is, let's make sure, before I tell a fib, is 6. All of the pages 6 across, 6 inches. And this one, from the beginning of that one page to the others, 8.5. So we're going to make the length 9, and the width then will be 6.5. 6.5. And I'm just going to write that down for myself, just so that I can remember and don't have to measure every time. And across is 6.5 inches. But I want a spine that is 4 inches wide. Why? Because I have all these goodies to include. Now, if we look at this, we can glue this. See, that is why I'm saying it's sad that I've lost that part. So we need to get 13 inches out of here. I just want to measure from that side to see if it will work. So we've got 12 there. I don't know why my light is flashing today like this. And there we have another one. So we might make it. I'll just do another measurement across, just so that I know where to cut. And another one at the bottom, which, oi, why did I measure it at 11? Silly me. And there. So we still make it with that. That is beautiful. So let's connect that. There we have it. And it should be 9 inches down. So it's right on that crease, which is awesome. And then I'm going to cut that with a paper trimmer, and I'm going to use this one to make the spine. And then we're going to put this together. Now, to make sure that this is fine, I will trim that and there, and then glue it together. Now, let me just measure this one from here at 6.5. We won't see any of these marks when we are done. So I'm going to trim that down. Cut that across and up there. So we would have our covers, and then this one would be the spine. Now this one also needs to be, and we'll use which side? That one has got less. Let's turn it. I want a 4-inch spine. So that will be 8 and then to 4. So I'm going to do that again. 8 and 4. So I'm just going to connect that, and it looks a bit skew. And just to get the height of this, it needs to be 9 inches, which in this case is just below this line. All good, all good. Let's make another mark there, and one from this side. Connect that. There we have it. So let me grab the paper trimmer, our trusty paper trimmer. So first of all, this doesn't fit in there. So let's get this going. I thought it would be a little bit wide. And really not any fault of this trimmer. It's just that way it is. Now we need to cut on that. There we have that one. We'll trim down there. I don't throw this ever away. Can be used for smaller journals. And I'm going to, let me turn it over this way. That way I can maneuver it easier. And there we have that one trimmed. Now we're going to, you can either score it and fold it over. I want to, however, just cut it across. And it can be easy. You can cut it at 4 because we wanted 4, and we can trim it on another 4. If you use a trimmer, you don't have to measure. I just showed you the measurements so that you can do it without a paper trimmer. And the little edge of this, there we have a perfect cut. Now this is our spine. I want a 4-inch spine because possibly can. We might have to cut a few times to get that through. It actually surprised me that it sliced through that one layer so quickly. And there is the second layer. Then I'm going to turn this across, and it won't fit in there because you can see here it doesn't fit there. Let's slice this one down first here, and then I'll slice the other. Now we said 6.5. It's easy enough to line that up. See if we measured it correctly, which we did. And a few times back and forth, we will slice that off now. So there we have this one. And then to get the other side done, we just put it in there and slice it there where we have marked it. So there we have that part. That is done, and another time for there. Quite thick in some spots, but there we have the one cover side. And then we will cut this one down, also on 9.5. I'm getting confused. 9 inches. 9 inches. I was going to measure that one again. 9 inches. I just want to make sure this one is on 9. And that last little bitty, there we go. It's actually done already. I just want to make sure that this is cut at 9 because my brain sometimes just doesn't work as it should under normal circumstances. So now we're going to glue these together. You can use a very strong glue, or you can simply use a glue stick, whichever is easiest for you. I'm going to grab what is right next to me, opening this up, and I will take that one as well. You can use whatever you have. Might be that you have the backing of a book. Now when you have paper packs, you can glue that together. Just putting enough glue in here. It will all be together, so I'm just making sure. Not too worried about this. Trusty card again. And just burnish that. Make sure the excess glue runs out if there's any. Run it across, and it will be dry. Nobody will know. I actually need to just take this piece off as well. It will be unnecessarily thick on there. Still a little layer that I would like to have off there. There we go. That's perfect. That can just dry. Let's do the next one. More glue. I just prefer a strong glue. You can use double-sided tape. Maybe it's the quality that I'm using, but I found after a few years it kind of pulls apart. So I prefer glue. Just getting that glue together again. Just burnish it well. Make sure that it is gluing down properly. Any excess glue can run out. And oops, my uncle. There we go. None there. There's a bit. I can feel it. And now for our spine. And I actually spilled glue on my cutting mat. If you want to, you can add the printed parts together. It really isn't an issue. Just make sure this lines up well. We will run a baby wipe across now to clean the cutting mat. Don't do what I just did. I moved the two cardstocks apart. There we go. Run it across the sides just to get all of that. Make sure this is flush. We're going to give this a moment to dry before we start working with it anyway. And there we have it. Right, the next step. The next step is for us to cover this. And I'm going to show you that it is actually not so difficult. Again, you can use double-sided tape. However, I use and prefer a strong glue. which in my case is Aleene's original tacky glue. You can, however, use art glitter glue. You can use any strong glue. It can be collage medium, it can be whatever you prefer. This just needs to just last a little bit. It will still dry, there's no issue with that, but I just want this to stand. I want to show you today, I'm going to use this stamp. Yes, it is one that I bought from AliExpress at some stage when I started crafting. It's quite yellow already because I told you I don't clean my stamps, but this is what I'm going to use for my topper today. I'm going to do a simple topper. A topper is just, some people do it with, let me first give an explanation. Some people use textile, you can use hessian or burlap, cottons, anything to stamp this on. You can do lace, you can do ribbons, you can do some embroidery. It's just a cover that can go a little, can I call it a card? Get that idea, that you will put then on the decorated cover of your journal or an album. So for an album, it will be an album topper. For a journal topper. So it's just like something extra with dimension that we put on the outside of the cover. Now, that will be the stamp, and we are going to give this a rest, and I'm just going to stamp this image on some cardstock. And what cardstock am I going to use? I need to find something that I can fit in. Now this, you might think is not going to fit, but it will fit in perfectly well on here with some extra space around it once covered to do something. And I want to still use some inks today, and some of the Distress Oxide inks and some texture based. Again, I would like to just finish it off because we have used that. I love the technique. It gives that different feel. Texture is just so rich to me. So I'm going to stamp that on some cardstock while this is just setting. So to do the stamping on for the topper, I'm going to use this color cardstock, and I am going to cut this down. This is, let me just measure it. I'll take the sheet that comes above. So that's 5.5 wide. I can move it a little bit. So there's a bitty from there. I can take about 2 and 2 there. So let's see. Okay, let's do it at 5.5 for now. We can trim it down a little bit later if I so wish. So, just while our cardstock is just drying before we start working with it. It's just easier when that is solid. There we go. Never throw the extras away. Like, never. So, there's that. And then we will somehow make a frame for this topper. So, what color do I want? I don't want any background stamping on here, as I want this the focus. And for this one, I just want to make sure that it is lined up so that I can line my paper up with this. I am going to use, I think, ground espresso just to make this stand out. I'm adding the ink to the stamp, and I will line this up now because obviously I am moving it around. Right, before we stamp this, I just want to wipe that away, just so that there's no extra ink on the topper. So let's just line this up and making sure that I can then get a good impression. I'm going to line it up at the bottom and there, and I'm going to place it down and then run my fingers over. I don't have a big enough stamping tool, which is a lie. There's one on this paper trimmer, the all-in-one of We Are Memory Keepers. All-in-one tool has got a beautiful stamping tool that I'm just too lazy to connect now. You can use the flat side of your glue stick just to run that across. If this is not a good impression, I will just stop my laziness and get the stamping tool out, just making sure that the tiny bits at the ends are stamped well. Yes, this is a risk. There can be double stamping. Maybe you move this. It's possible you could do it the other way by putting the stamp to the cardstock. So let's do the great reveal and see if this has stamped well. If not, we just stamp it on this side again. And there we have it. There we have it. So that is the image for my topper. And yes, it will just be that. I'm going to do it very simple today. And I'm going to ink the edges. See, we can trim a little bit off here, which I think I want to do before I ink it. Just a little bitty. Use the knife and on this side, I never cut toward my project, because if it slips, you can then damage your whole project, which will be really heartbreaking. So I cut away. If it slips, then it will be against the ruler. And there we have that. I think that little bitty just make sure that it is nicely centered. I want to now ink with ground espresso the edges of this. And once we add it to our cover, it will be so pretty. Hopefully we will have time. I want to try and make some sort of a little dangle type like thing. We will see if we get to that. Right. That is the image that I want to use for my topper. I think it's really quite pretty. Now, let's continue with our cover. For the cover, we've got these sets. You can feel it's now a little bitty sturdier since we've got the double layer of this. Doesn't matter if there's printing on this. You could have flipped it over and have the inside. It's just a good way to repurpose this, and having a double layer means it's a whole lot more sturdy and makes it then a proper hard cover. Now there's some little strips here that we will just pull off, and that's fine. So we basically going to attach it like this with a slight space in between, just so that we can have place for the paper to go, to bend, all of that, and I'll show you an easy trick. I'm going to use some ribbon. You can use whatever you have to make the closure of this, and once we put the outer layer over, the inside will still be visible, and for that we are going to close it up. But before we do that, we're going to attach some ribbon so that we can actually have a closure, and we're going to put it on both sides before we close it up, so that way we have this sorted. Now when we are working with the outside of the cover, before we do that, so I'm going to do the decoration first. Once that is dry and done, we do the inside, complete the inside. Otherwise, we sit with glue on the inside that's still wet, some texture paste on the outside that is still not settled and dry, and it can become a big mess. So I'm moving this to one side so I can get my paper out. We had cut this open. I want to try and use most of this because there is a part here that is got that part. Now we're going to cover it up with ink. We can put some gesso over it. Nobody would even see that little bit of ink that is showing through there, where they had written the order number on the outside of this. So it doesn't matter which side you start. I want to start with this side because this has also got a double layer there. We start with our 3 parts. Now to get this sorted, we're also going to put some ink on it. I hope I am in focus here for you. I'm going to move this a little bit to one side so that we have about 1 inch around. We will trim this one down once we are done, and we will continue with the glue almost fell over with our cover. So about 1 inch that we will fold over, but I'll show you how we do that in a moment. If you are a bit lazy to cut that down, you can adjust this a tiny bit. More will not make any difference. It's really not an issue. So let's do that. It will be easiest. I'm going to turn this over. It doesn't matter which side you use, as long as you can attach this to the outside. And I'm going to add glue all around. And yes, I'm squeezing this bottle, about the life out of this bottle at this point. There, maybe a little bit there. And I'm going to use my trusty card, just smear it along so that it is evenly distributed. It just ensures there aren't any unevenness anywhere on the cover. And if you want to clean it, just put it there. We know you're anyway going to put this down. turn it over, eyeball it from the side, and there we have it. Again, just burnish it. Don't worry about the extra glue that is on there. Now for the spine, the same way. We're going to put glue down, and before we stick it down, I want to show you the trick to just ensure. I had it open the whole time now while I was waiting for this to stick down while we did the stamping on the topper. Yeah, and don't think the topper is finished. We might still, I don't know, give it a bit of a fine-tuning there. Just getting that sorted. A little bit of glue this side and there. There we go. If there's glue on this cover, it doesn't matter. I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to take my metal ruler and push it up to there and push it up there so that there is space between. That way you know that there is a little bit of a space there to make sure it can bend. And when I say bend, the paper. Now this is a bit of a wrinkle, and it's not an issue. We will flatten it out before our glue is dry. And I'm going to do the same thing quickly with the spine. And you can see there is a bit of a wrinkle there, but once you run your nail over it, it should be fine. And this is what's happening when you use liquid glue. But it's still all good. Now the last bit of this, I'm going to move this over just to ensure that I am still within the frame. Now for this, same thing, put the glue down. I think I want this on the inside. So let's do the glue on the outside. If I'm out of frame, I apologize for that. Just get the glue on. Glue stick could have helped as well, but I just trust a stronger type of glue for that. Again, just run the card across so that we can distribute that sort of evenly. I want some here, a little bit more there, and I think there we have it. And now to just put this down, same thing, just put that down. And what we're going to do now is just make sure it's aligned, and then before we push it down, we have this, and there we have it. Is it a bit skew? It looks like it, but as long as everything is covered. Again, just burnish this very well, and we might be able to trim that off there without having too much of that ink seeping through. And I will trim it there. This can be used for clusters, collages. I use that frequently without having to buy extra craft paper. Now we adjusted this. You can put it flat down so that it can just get itself sorted. We will get that one out. Wrinkles. This one really does make a bubble now. But there we have it. The cover is sort of done. What we're going to do now is just making sure this can bend. That's why we leave that little bit of space there. No issue when we fold it. If you don't leave that space, it will not be able to open up like this. So we're going to start with putting some glue down. I want to just fold this over to make sure that we can actually get it to fold over nicely. Same with this side. And we are going to do the inside as well. So let's start at the bottom. And we are going to add some glue to glue this part up. But here you can see exactly where this is going to fold. If you do that, fold it in on both sides, you can then see where you can trim it. Now when we trim it, not too far in. And the same here. I'll show you a rerun of that, not too far and not too far. There we go. So it's not the whole corner. I'm going to add glue. Running the card across, making sure there's glue more or less everywhere. And I got glue inside now, in that little hollow. Let's fold this over. And yes, if there is space left, it doesn't matter. We're going to cover this anyway. I'm going to turn this over and do the top part now. You could have pulled the stickers off if the delivery stickers are bothering you at all. And for this one, did I fold it? Maybe not. The same thing. Just going to cut it there, not too far in or far out. You can cut it from this side. And this side too. I just need to move this so that I can get to the angle that I prefer. And there we have it. This is not too thick paper, but if you use something like scrabble paper, you would want to first score it before you fold it. If it's anything thicker than that, you would want to score it on both sides so that you can fold it easily. And now I'm going to turn this so that I can do the sides. If you cut this too far, this gap will be too big. And I think on that side I will have a perfect example of that for you. Bit of extra glue there. We can just wipe it off because we're going to cover the inside anyway at a later stage. And then this side, exactly the same thing. Making sure that we have enough glue there. Just an even distribution. And like I said again, well, earlier, people do sometimes prefer to use double-sided tape. I had found that it doesn't always work perfectly well. And in a couple of years, it does come loose. And when I say couple of years, I mean quite a few years. All right. Now, I'm not bothered with the ink that is, listen to me, the glue that is all over the show at this stage. We will be covering this anyway. Now, there we have our cover. Here and there, a few wrinkles, but once we have decorated it, we will probably not even see it. I'm going to cut this one a little bit and that one, just so that we can get that sorted. And then turn it over and do the same thing, just so that it can bend properly. Don't work too hard because you might cut your cover. This piece is still bothering me just because it's standing up where we have taken down the handles. And there we have basically our cover. Now at this point it looks too wide, but the minute that we are going to add our things and this is dry, we will see that we have a lot of ephemera to add to this journal. Now time is really running with this, so what I'm going to do is, we had worked with texture paste before. I just want to give you an idea of how the topper sort of will look on here. Yes, this one looks as if it's buckling at this stage. We can bend it a tiny little bit. You can put something heavy down on this. This is quite damp because of the liquid glue, but we're going to add this more or less here. So what I want to do is, with a pencil, I'm going to mark the area where I want my topper to be. And I'm going to try not to do any texture paste, sorry that my mind is not working. Texture paste in that area. I want to do it on the side. So I'm going to do the texture paste while this is drying and while this is flattened, so that I can easily add all of that, what I want to do. Now for starters, we're going to start with some oxide inks because I want to bring that whole flicking technique on here, and you will see it goes lighter, and that's perfect. I will be adding some darker spots, some on the spine. We're even going to put some on the back. So this cover will look totally different by the time that we are done. Now when I get to this part, I'm going to really, truly speed this part up quite a bit. And I want more of this lighter color here. There's another piece of this that is really bothering me now. We will just add a bit more ink. These oxides are beautiful, and that's why you won't see any of that unevenness, maybe bubbles, wrinkles. All of that will be somehow blemished. Now we can put a little bit more ink around here so that we can decorate this cover with the technique that we have used before. I'm definitely going to use some wild honey, some rusty hinge, dried marigold, of course some vintage photo, and some ground espresso. And of course, the normal ones, which would be the distress inks, because they just react with water a whole different way. Now let me just get my finger dauber out there, because I used the small one for the dried marigold. I'm using a lot of distress oxides today on this dried marigold. Here and there a little bit of that, because it's this almost apricot peachy pastel color. And the milky or chalkiness of this, I think, is what is making this product so amazing. We use this flicking technique and the ink smooshing when, well, basically right through the series. Actually right through the series. Some distress oxide in wild honey, which is quite yellow, but if you add 2 or 3 layers to it, it becomes quite orangey. And compared to the antique linen that we had used on here, it looks very yellow. Very yellow. But it doesn't bother me. I like how it livens up the project. And maybe a little bit there, that can go in there. I'm not going to add too much of that because I want to use some rusty hinge as well. And if you don't have the distress oxides or distress inks, you can also use some acrylic paints. Just put a bit of water to it, flick it on, have fun, experiment, see what happens. If you don't use what you have and you feel you have to use what I'm using, it causes unnecessary or undue stress, and it's really, really, really not needed to feel that way. Now I want to show you, once it's dry, it's not as bright as it was there, but I want to use a little bit more here and there, not too much of it, but I just want to add a bit more of that wild honey, and I am specifically adding 2 layers of the wild honey. Right, now rusty hinge, a color that I use so often in my steampunk work. And yes, I am putting down blotches of this, and it doesn't matter because once we wet it, it will react with water. A little bit there. Maybe a bit there. And I need something, I think, over here. And maybe there. Maybe here too. And now that all-time favorite of mine, vintage photo. Vintage photo. I just love it. You know, I use that often, mostly for the edges. You can see the oxides really take a little bit longer to dry. And even if you miss a spot, it's not the end of the world, because the cover is in the craft paper, so it all works out perfectly fine. You don't have to cover every millimeter of the cover in inks. You can leave a little bit, but I want to just bring in a bit of that darker brown as well, and just ensuring that cohesive look. Maybe a little bit there. There's not much of my favorite brown on the front. And now that this is dry, I'm going to add a bit of vintage photo there as well. And you will see in a minute or so when I add the ground espresso, I'm just going to do that very sparingly, as it is a very dark brown color. Now there are some that is within where I want to put the frame, or the topper rather, and we might not see all those colors, but it might run that way when we blow on it or tip it or whatever. So I am going to add little bitties here and there of this darker color, which is still within and really I'm just playing as I'm going along here. For now, that is it. And when we're done, I will probably also ink the edges of the journal. So there we have that. Now, what do we do now? We have to spread some water on it, or you can splash water on it. And immediately you can see the water reacts with the distress oxides. Getting a baby wipe, just a wipe anyway. Doesn't have to be a baby wipe. Before an accident happened, let me just close this water spritzer of mine. And I'm going to let this run a little bit. And then just dab some of this. And of course we will have to bring the heat tool closer just to dry this a tiny bit. For now we can't really see too much of the color effect. You can see the color on the baby wipe. And that is that beautiful rusty hinge. I'm just grabbing the heat tool quickly. Now that it is dry, we are going to continue and adding the distress texture paste. Yes, this looks as if it's buckly, but we can still put it down and just make sure that you can see the inside is still wet, but that doesn't matter. It will dry soon enough. I just want to put a little bit glue in there because I didn't put glue on that. And just work in a little bit and work it out so that it can just stop buckling there. And there we have it. Now, this is the front, so it needs to be this way. You can use whatever stencil you will. We're going to add a little bit of ink still. Now, this is a beautiful cover. I love the look of it already. Yes, it's quite thick, but once we put our 2 signatures in and we add the goodies, there's quite a lot. And then we still have to put extra tuck spots and belly bands and things like that in to actually accommodate all our beautiful ephemera that we made. Now, for this, I cannot decide. I kind of like this crackle stencil. That would be beautiful to use on top of all of that. I wonder if I shouldn't use that for inking, and then let's do that. I will use walnut stain. Where's my walnut stain? I'm going to do this quickly. And for this one, I'm going to use a piece of cellophane so that I can tap on that and not make dark spots. So I'll put it here so you can see. I start there, and I'm going to just stencil on the areas that has got color on it before we go ahead and do the texture paste. I kind of like this. This will be perfect. I really, really like this. You can go a little bit into there. It's not an issue. This is a very quick effect. I'm going to go ahead. Doesn't really matter if some of it is darker than the others. I just want to, let's continue with this one first. There. And we can drag it over to this page. Extend this. This doesn't matter because we're going to cover it anyway. Now this side, let's just extend this pattern down here. And there's a little bit where there's no marks, so it's fine. I like that. Oh, I like it a lot. See what I see? I make marks. So I must maybe just go over that again. And just, can't really see that now, but let me go across here a little bit more careful, because I had really made a mess there with the stencil. Let's just not go over the edge with this, because otherwise there will be that horrible mark again. But it's okay, we can camouflage that with some texture paste. And while this is open, it is an awesome opportunity to put texture paste wherever we want it. And there we go. I think maybe a little bit of crackle at the bottom still. There we go. I like this effect quite a bit. Yes, it doesn't look like anything at this point, but I can assure you it will be amazing. Now for the texture paste. Now, seeing that I used that one, I'm going to start with this uneven dots, and I'm going to put some texture paste here and there. Remember, with the texture paste, use whatever you take. Don't use texture paste back in your pot. So I'm going to start there. Just add a little bit there. I'm going to just lift this and just take that off there, so that, now just make sure, oh, there's another bit here on the edge. Don't make a mess now. There we go. Here it will be easier. I want a little bit there as well. Not too much, because I want to use another stencil as well. There we go. You can just press down those little bitties that's standing up like that. Remember I said I want to camouflage that part, so I'm going to be a little bit focused on that area. And I just want to turn this around just so that I don't smudge that part. And now that the palette knife is clean, I will just go ahead and take a little bit more from the jar. You can see how the texture paste is reacting with the oxide inks. And that is the beauty of oxide, or distress oxides. I'm going to use... Remember to clean your things almost immediately before it is dry, otherwise it will be impossible for you to clean this. I want to add a little bit of this stencil here and there. I don't know how will I get that done without smashing the others. Let's see if we get it right. A little bit there, maybe a little bit there. It's now really tricky, because I do not want to smash the others, but I want to add a little bit more of this there, just to enhance that texture. I need a little bit more paste. Let's see. And luckily these stencils are quite pliable and flexible, so that surely helps. And I want to put a little bit up here, a little bit more, and here I want quite a bit of this. I love the stencil so much. And then I'm going to go to the bottom and just add a little bit there as well. There we have that. Now I'm going to let this dry for a little bit and just make sure that I clean up my stencil. So the cover is done. Here and there it's still a little bit damp where it's really thick, but it shouldn't be a problem. What I want us to do now is, before I glue the topper down, is I'm going to turn this over and we're quickly going to glue the paper on the inside. Now before we get to that, I just want to put this in, and I want to show you how I do that. Just maybe like so. Should be perfect. I'm going to just do that. Right. For this, I'm going to just run this across, maybe half. I just want to see quickly. Ruler. No, I need inches, right? 9, so it is 4.5. And I'm going to just pull that right through. And I'm going to do the same on this side, regardless whether it's upside down or not. It's still 9, so 4.5 inches. And I'm just extending that. That is giving me the midpoint where I'm going to add this ribbon. Now, this is the back and this is the front. And that is where we're going to add the topper. And I think that is going to be amazing. There we go. Now with the other series that's coming, I'll show you a different way to decorate the front cover. But I think for now this is simple enough, but beautiful enough. So let's add this. And for this, I'm going to use Gouache Medium. Distress Gouache Medium. And I'm going to, let's give it a quick shake. And I'm going to add there and this side. It actually dries clear, and once it's dry it shrinks, so I'm going to add this on there so that it can dry, and you will see I extended just a tiny little bit past that edge. Now on this side I'm going to do the same. I just have to move this into the viewpoint camera view so that you can at least see what I'm doing. And there we have it. We're just going to give this a moment time to dry, and then we will be adding our inner page. Now you can do fabric, you can do washi tape on the ends if you think you need to reinforce that. You can, and I will be, just in a second, I will be adding some, but not, this will be covered anyway, but not to the end. I will just do it from there to there and there to there, just so that it is a little bit more sturdy. The same with this, I will add a piece of washi tape there. Now you can go ahead and use anything. I sometimes use is a transport micropore and add that because it is also a textile. So I will just cut some off here, scissors, instead of washi tape. Just cut that, not the finger, not the finger. Shoo, that was almost. Now this is quite sticky, so just a little strip like that. I want to show you, and we add this on the inside, just there where the paper is. The edge, nobody will see, nobody will be any wiser. So I'm going to go ahead and cut a few strips off camera, and I'll show you when I am finished with that. So here we have the reinforcement on the inside. You can see I didn't put it all the way up. There's already 2 layers there and the side. So just to reinforce the spine here, this paper and our little fasteners, I added a piece on either side just to show you. And then we're going to cover the inside now. After that, we're going to put the topper, and this paper here will just cover this inside piece. Now it will be longer than an A4 size, and it is not a problem. You can again use a shopping bag. I'm going to use some brown craft paper or wrapping paper for this. So I'm going to slice the craft paper just so that it's more or less to size. This is a bit out of view, but you will see me in a second or so. Using my craft knife or Stanley knife and just trying to cut it a little bit to a more manageable size. And we will trim the rest off now. There we go. And I can put the roll to one side, and this should then be a little bit more easier to manage. This is still quite wide, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim this right here. It's now trimmed a little bit. I'm going to fold this over, but with the more glossy side on the inside, just so that we can trim this down. I'm sorry, this is quite noisy. I'm sure you would appreciate the fact that this is not intentional, and I'm going to just trim it off a tiny little bit. Now, the height of our journal is 9, so I just want to make sure that we have that sorted. Now this seems a little bit less because it needs to be, but I wanted about 8.5, which this is more or less. I will just try and trim this side. I'll just fold this so I can see. That one needs a little bit. So let's just put this straight down just to get it as even as possible. Now we can't slice it down because we need to have this. So I'm going to move it there for some or another reason. There we go. I need to keep that flat. And it tears my paper. That's what I was scared of. What a mess this is. But we can fix that, luckily. I was hoping it would not tear, but it actually did. So I'm going to just trim this with a hand, so I can still put glue on the inside and trim that. Now this will be the same. I'm going to just trim it by hand so that I do not have a repeat of that. Let's see. It doesn't help. I want to trim this with a paper trimmer either, unless I put another piece of paper in. So I'm going to just cut it there. I do not want this to tear yet again. I should have thought about that. It's too thin and I am too rough with this paper. So let's see if this is trimmed down enough, besides it being torn, but we can fix that in a sec. That looks fine. So bringing our paper back, I'm going to just make sure that everything will be fine. I can bring it in a little bit and trim this off a tiny little bit. But now I must just not cut the ribbon here. There we have it. So we can now go ahead and just glue that down. I want to do the shiny side. It would be easier because the roll is that way. It will be easier to keep it flat. For this, I'm going to use glue stick. I'm not going to use liquid glue because this craft wrapping paper is very, very flimsy. And it will truly wrinkle with liquid glue. Let's start there. Work our way down, around, and then in. And you will see I put glue stick even over that tape. And there too. There we can put a little bit more. There we have it. Now, on the inside, as evenly as possible. Start from the top. I now just have to be exceptionally careful and pull it a little bit. And to get this part glued down as well, we will fix the ends just now, if need be. Where is my card? So I can use that. Burnish it. Yes, here are parts that's standing up. Not an issue. I'm going to just glue that down. Not going to worry that it is a little bit further than it should be on that bit of paper, but we can put some extra glue there, run our nail across. And I'm going to turn this over so I can work on this side as well, making sure that is glued down all the way, which is more enforcement for our ribbon there as well, which is glued down this part, not there. That's why it's so easily moved around there. And if you smeared glue like I did here now, just grab that baby wipe quickly before the glue is dry and it doesn't have that shininess to it. So that is perfect. And then the last bit of first aid here in the corner. Just want to pick that up and a little bit of glue there. And there we have it. So the inside is covered. What we're going to do now is we're just going to guide this so that it can fold in that and there, and it should be able to fold beautifully. And there we have our cover. Now I'm going to add the topper, and I think that just looks too gorgeous. Again, I'm going to do this with glue stick, just making sure there's enough glue on the sides in that corner and then in the middle. And you can apply this liberally, making sure there's no glue. And for the final touch, let's do this. Now we have got some marks there where we want it, but this one we can't see, and that one really also not. So I'm just going to add this evenly as far as I can tell, and just press this down with my fingers. And there we have our cover. Now for the next series, there is a more elaborate topper for the journal cover. And the journal cover itself has got some interactiveness in it, an extra flap on the front and the back. So instead of having just 3 parts to it, it's got 5 parts to it. So there is our topper. Now, just to give you a little bit of a teaser for the next session, we are going to add, oops, that piece is still not glued down. Let me just add a bit of glue there and move it back. There we go. Nobody will be none the wiser on that. This is covered. The inside is beautiful. Nobody will know it's Amazon packaging or repurposed packaging. For our signatures, we are going to add that, sewing it in next time, and add the goodies. And that is just amazing. You might think a 4-inch spine is too much. It is actually not a lot if we have to add all these other things. And we're going to use the 3-hole method. I call it the pretzel method. That's just me referring to it as a pretzel, and I will tell you why I say that in the next video. I hope you enjoyed today's session, that you learned how to make your own cover, and that you have the confidence to try this for yourself. Thank you for joining me again today. If you try this for yourself, please tag While We're Crafting on social media. If you want to see more content like this, give me a thumbs up. Remember to hit the bell so that you are notified whenever new content is uploaded, and I will appreciate if you subscribe too. Hope to see you soon again. Goodbye.